So moving into the public architecture, went to the Dogon to kind of get back to the kind of anthropological beginnings of architecture. What is a minimum house? This is in Africa, in Mali. And what is a minimum? These are the quick sketches you do when you're trying to keep up with your buddies. What is the beginning of public architecture? What's the first public building? You know, these people have been living here for a couple of million years, right? This is one of the oldest places on the planet where people have lived. And this is, you know, like going back to the beginning, right? And this is a beautiful thing from an environmental point of view. It's the only cool place in the village with this thatch roof. The only problem is that only men are allowed to be in it, although my wife Marilyn managed to get in it. You get in trouble if you go in there. Anyway, so this is kind of a bridge into public architecture. So I'll start with, in the city, here's the fortress in Halifax, here's the neighborhood in the city where we live. The turquoise things are the village there. So 20 years ago, we built ourselves a bunch of houses to pay for a renovation of a gas station into an office. Kind of urban infill. Working with that kind of thin-skinned wooden box and just cutting into it. The great thing about platform frame construction is you can whack holes in a wooden building wherever you like. It's incredibly free. So, anyway, this is where we live in the city. It's being reshingled now. Here's the new office in the hood. So this is our new office we built. There's the lesbian bar, there's the gay bar, there's the needle exchange. Next to the legal aid clinic. So this is a absolutely austere building. It's a porte cochere like everything else. And the room up top is where we work. There's just a big 40-foot long table up there. And I have a partner now. Because we're going to do public architecture, we need to have a real office and need to have help. You know, somebody who can help work through the other scale of work. Here's the courtyard. Here's what we built across the way. So you can see there's a kind of willing of this stuff. You know, when I showed the farm, I cleared all that myself with a chainsaw over 25 years. You know, we did this project. We built 10 townhouses to pay for, to will a kind of urbanism on a decaying neighborhood. So you can see the office and the townhouses there. First public building we did was the School of Architecture. Remember the professors I said I wanted to piss off? Well, they were the clients. And so they tried to have my license revoked to practice for life. So we just built this on the vernacular model of the kind of boat building sheds, being didactic about how the building is made, expressing all the systems in a School of Architecture for the students. So I like to say these guys designed the building. Daryl and his other brother Daryl here. And when they tried to take my license away, these guys threatened them. No, these guys said, "You're crazy. We've never built a building with no extras, public building." So this is my Sistine Chapel shot here. When I was a kid, when I was 4 years old, my parents took me to the Sistine Chapel, and I laid down on the floor, and my memory is that it was a wrench that God was passing to Adam there. So this is the first public building we did. Then we built this computer science building in Halifax, another university building, another floating box, 200 feet, taut skin, floating on fish tank glass. We did a campus plan for the university, and then we built this thing. And it's a vernacular office building. I mean, it's $130 a foot for a high-tech office building. These public buildings deal with other issues, right, that come attendant to public architecture. So a systems approach is what we express in public architecture. We use a participatory design process that's a little more elaborate than the one we do in the tavern for the houses. There's urbanity involved, and there's social agency, and that's the kind of active will in public architecture, is to make a social space where it doesn't exist in the program. So this is a room that wasn't in the program, and people are in there seen and being seen. There's 1,000 people a day in there. And we did a university building at Toronto. And in Toronto, they like to do buildings that are very articulated, right? Because they're hip, they're sophisticated in Toronto, not like us boony architects, boony people in the Maritimes. So we're trying to get this through the committee in Toronto, University of Toronto, and they said, you're going to make the whole thing out of copper? Like everything? Where are all the different materials coming together for the magazine shot? So the sketch we did to get the job, the campus sketch, participatory design sketch with the users. This is a workshop. This is the stage in the workshop where we tell everybody that they all had the same idea, and it happened to be the one we had. No, not really. It's an honest process. They call this one the shiny copper penny. And we were so far under budget that it was 15% under budget. So we had all this money left over so we could do all this cherry wood stuff. Because it's a systems building. I don't see this as a thing. I see it as a series of trades that come and go from the site. So public architecture really makes the trades thing very, very clear as a design generator. Then we did a art school in Halifax on the waterfront with all those great kind of industrial structures for the dirty industry, dirty arts. We renovated a 300-foot long piece of a half-a-mile long building, which we thought was really swell and big until the boat pulled up. It's just a loggia. And a loggia, again, is a form that has a public, a social agency about it, right? So, and that wasn't in the program. There was no budget for it. There was no public space in this building. So we just willed it. And it's one of those lantern chameleon things. Like the houses, you have to go behind it to get in. It's very indirect. And then all the money, 65% of the money went to mechanical systems because artists work in toxic situations, right? So this is a 300-foot long piece of glass on the harbor side. A business school. When we make a building at a university campus, we say we add one pavilion, we make 2 quads. Got to make 2 quads every time you add a building because we need to have these microclimates and cut the wind out of these campuses, right? So that's the first sketch. So we got to build onto this building, made a building which is a pavilion for the hood ornament on the campus, to the community, public spaces, breakout spaces. It's very breakout rich. This whole building is a lounge. The whole building is a social place. So it's an act of will. One up in Ontario. This is the Niagara Escarpment, which you can see from the moon. Goes to Niagara Falls. So we built another university building out of copper there. It's the kind of party for the south facade that you just saw. Hard to count the stories here. And this is the active will there. There was no program, no budget for gathering space. And then the campus now, this is the space where the theater groups come and they do their illegal theater at night and stuff like that. Uses the local escarpment stone and the 400-year copper skin. And that's the north facade, making a quad. And so the stairs, the kind of, like in the computer science building, the pair of stairs in this one are the kind of seeing, being seen, social agency piece. Like that famous stair in the Odeon Cafe in Zurich, that the Dadaists used to go upstairs and down to see who was there, This is where the next piece is supposed to be added. Then we went to Bangladesh and did an embassy, a Canadian embassy there. So they don't have any shingles there. The climate's a little different. They have bricks, because it's the Ganges Delta. They got bricks and bricklayers, so that's their shingle. And the more you travel, the more everything's the same. I mean, they're great, lovely people. They make good folk art, just like in Nova Scotia. This is my partner, Talbot. He calls this the UNICEF shot. I don't know if you have UNICEF here. But he hates this because it looks like he's going to eat these little children. He's a 350-pound hockey player. And, hockey for us is like rugby for you, right? It's like a hero if you're a hockey player. Anyway, so this is where Talbot comes from, Newfoundland, and this Dhaka. So you grow up in an outport in Newfoundland, you go halfway around the world, and it's just like home. Except the climate. And we're right between the devil and the deep blue sea here. We got the Vatican embassy here, and we got the American fortress right there. And they all think we're going to, because we're so friendly, we're right out on the street, that the terrorists are all going to go in our building and jump on them at night. They really think that. So this building is a brick. It's a folded brick. And it, like the houses, it's very indirect. The way you enter, you have to go in like this. It has very little public space in it, just these little yellow bits. That's immigration. There's the party room and the official residence. There's the chancery. So using the courtyard form, which is a local form and a tropical form, we created the illusion of public architecture. Post 9/11 embassies are secure buildings. They're office buildings and secure buildings. They're not public buildings anymore. And we tried to create the illusion that it was a public building by just making this bent brick. And the Canadian government didn't want to do this. They wanted it back like the U.S. Embassy. So act of will. No, we're going to go into the street. Canada's different. And it's not a public building, but we're going to make it one anyway. We're going to deal with all your security stuff and still make public architecture. And then they said bricks are not spiffy enough for an embassy. And I said, if you don't build it 80% out of what they know how to do there, you're not going to be able to afford to do it at all. So just like home. I came back 8 years later, and the guy who argued with me about the bricks was at the door to shake my hand. And he said, you know, you were right about the bricks. I said, no, I wasn't. I said 80%. It would have been a much better building if it was 100%. Because the bits that got all buggered up were the pieces that were our architectural vanity got the better of us. So the brick bits are good. Good enough. You know, this thing about craft and fetishizing craft, how much is enough craft? Is a more interesting question, I think. What's enough? I think that's enough, I think, the brick. Chancery, Brise-Soleil. So just a big brick thing with some metal bits folding down. They call this the round embassy in Dhaka.